Okay, so picture the war room. It's what, 2014?
Right, 2014.
And you are sitting at the top of the Human Rights Campaign, the HRC. You're the heavyweight champion of LGBTQ advocacy.
No, you have all this momentum, right? The Northeast, the West Coast.
It's all on board. But then you have this glaring, massive blank spot right on your map, the American South.
And the laws there aren't just stagnant.
No, they're actively moving backward. The culture feels, I don't know, impenetrable.
So you have a choice.
Exactly. Do you stay in your safe zones, keep racking up wins in New York and California, or do you take millions of dollars of donor money and light a fire in what your own memos called the most religious state in America?
It's the ultimate risk-it-all scenario. And they didn't just dip a toe in.
Not at all.
They launched something called All God's Children. And just hearing that name.
It doesn't sound like a political action committee operation.
No, it sounds like a sermon title.
Which is such a fascinating pivot. Today, we aren't just talking about a marketing campaign. We're doing a deep dive into what happens when, an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
We're talking about the HRC trying to crack the code of Mississippi, Alabama, and Arkansas.
And we need to be clear about the stakes here, because this is not just a story about some heartwarming TV commercials.
No, this is a story about the messy, expensive, and sometimes dangerous business of trying to manufacture cultural change.
Right, because when you look at the source material we have today, it's not all clean and tidy. We've got the strategy documents, sure, but we also have hard data on the economic penalties of being gay in the South. We have the sociology of why people actually change their minds, and we have this very dark, very recent chapter.
A legal case that proves just how fragile this kind of image politics can be.
Yeah.
That recent case, the Walton County incident involving the Zulaks, that's a crucial piece of this whole puzzle.
It really is.
It shows us the double-edged sword of basing a civil rights movement on the idea of the perfect family. But we'll get to that.
Okay, so first, we have to look at the battlefield as it stood in 2014. Why Mississippi? I mean, if you're a progressive advocacy group, Mississippi feels like the boss level of a video game you aren't equipped to beat.
Well, to understand the why, you really have to look at something called the Social Climate Index.
I saw that in the notes. They gave the South a score of 55, which I'm assuming is out of 100. Because if that's a test score, you are repeating the grade.
It's the lowest regional score in the country, yeah.
Yeah.
But let's peel back the layers of that number, because 55 is, it's abstract.
Right.
The Social Climate Index isn't just a vibe check. It aggregates hard metrics. Does the state have hate crime laws that include sexual orientation?
Are there employment non-discrimination laws?
Is there marriage equality?
Yeah.
In the South, the answer to almost all of those was no.
And it goes beyond just the laws, doesn't it? I was looking at the polling data on discomfort. This isn't just about whether you can get married. It's about whether you can exist visibly. The data showed that discomfort with public displays of affection or even seeing a photo of a same-sex partner on a desk polled like 5 to 10 percentage points higher in the South.
That's the temperature of the room. And that temperature has a direct impact on your wallet. This is one of the most shocking statistics from the research.
Like income gap.
The income gap. If you look at the economic reality for same-sex couples with kids in the South, their average household income was $11,000 lower than heterosexual couples.
$11,000. It completely upends the myth of gay affluence, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
You always hear about the dink status, dual income, no kids marketing agencies love that demographic. But in the South, the reality was just significantly poorer and more precarious.
And that poverty gap cascades into everything else. Health, for instance.
Right.
Gay and bisexual men in the South had higher HIV infection rates than anywhere else in the United States. And coverage. Only 75% of Southern LGBTQ people even had health insurance. So you're operating in an environment with less money, more health risks, and fewer legal protections.
It's a compound fracture of social issues. And standing over all of this, the laws, the economics, the culture, is the institution of the church.
You cannot tell the story of the South without talking about the Southern Baptist Convention. It's the dominant cultural force.
In Mississippi specifically, more than half the residents identify as Southern Baptist.
Exactly. The HRC knew this. They explicitly referred to Mississippi as the most religious state in America.
Which brings us back to the strategy. So if you are the HRC, and you know you're walking into the lion's den of religious conservatism, you don't walk in wearing a meat suit.
Right. You don't go in with confrontation. Confrontation just triggers a defense mechanism.
You've lost before you've even started.
If you come in as the northern outsider telling Southerners their values are wrong, you've lost before you buy your first ad slot.
Yeah.
So they did something counterintuitive. They decided to speak the language of the locals.
All God's children.
The strategy was built entirely around shared values. They wanted to decouple the idea of LGBTQ rights from the culture war.
And recouple it with Christian values of love and family and non-judgment.
Precisely.
So let's talk about the mechanics of this, because the ad spend was, it was massive. We are not talking about a grassroots flyer campaign.
Oh, no. This was an air war.
A very expensive one.
It was an $8.5 million investment over 3 years for Mississippi, Alabama, and Arkansas. For the Mississippi launch alone, they dropped over $300,000 immediately.
And the content of these ads, I watched a few of them while prepping. They're fascinating pieces of media. They didn't use actors. They didn't use politicians.
No, they used the ultimate authority figures in Southern culture.
Moms.
Moms, specifically Christian moms. One of the key spots featured a Southern Baptist mother sitting in her kitchen talking about her love for her gay son.
She wasn't talking about legislation, was she?
Not at all. She was talking about her faith in her child.
It's like they weaponized the mama bear archetype. And you also had gay Army veterans. That feels like a very, very deliberate choice.
Of course. It's meant to challenge the stereotype of what a gay man looks like to a conservative audience.
It creates a permission structure, you know?
It does. If a viewer sees a veteran, someone who served the country, someone who looks like their neighbor or their nephew, it creates cognitive dissonance. It forces the viewer to reconcile their prejudice with their patriotism.
And they threw in transgender students as well, which that was arguably the hardest lift. But the framing was always, we are your neighbors, we are Christians, we are just like you.
And this brings up a concept in political science called soft power versus hard power.
Okay.
Hard power is the law, the Supreme Court rulings, the legislation. But hard power is brittle if the culture rejects it.
Right. You can change a law, but if people hate it, they'll just find ways around it, like those religious freedom bills allowing businesses to deny service.
Yeah.
So All God's Children was the soft power offensive. It was an attempt to till the soil so that when the legal changes came, they might actually take root.
And the timing was surgical. They launched the Mississippi ads in November 2014, literally 48 hours before a federal court was set to hear arguments on the state's same-sex marriage ban.
Wow. So they were trying to create a soft power buffer for a hard power event.
That's the idea.
So the $8.5 million question, did it work? Because you can spend a fortune on soft power and still get absolutely nowhere.
This is where the data gets messy and really fascinating. If you just look at the trend lines, support for same-sex marriage in the South was already skyrocketing.
Before the campaign.
Between 2003 and 2013, support rose by 26 percentage points.
That is a seismic shift. I mean, in political terms, you rarely see a 26-point swing on a fundamental moral issue in a single decade.
It's huge. But here's the catch. That 26-point swing happened before the All God's Children campaign really kicked into high gear.
So the HRC might have been surfing the wave rather than creating it?
Or at least, they were paddling into a swell that was already forming. Sociologists point to something called the friends and family effect.
Or the contact hypothesis?
Right. Gordon Allport. The idea that prejudice thrives in abstraction. It's easy to hate the gays as a concept.
But it's much harder to hate Dave, your accountant, who brings decent potato salad to the block party.
That's it in a nutshell.
Mm.
By 2014, about 64% of Southerners reported knowing someone personally who was gay or lesbian.
And once you cross that threshold...
Once the majority of the population has a personal connection, the political opposition starts to crumble because it conflicts with personal loyalty.
So you have this natural sociological engine people coming out, just living their lives, driving the numbers up, and then HRC comes in to accelerate it. But we have to pivot here because you can't drop a campaign like this into the Deep South without generating some serious heat.
The backlash was immediate. The American Family Association of Mississippi issued a statement almost instantly. They argued that the normalization of homosexuality was unacceptable.
And their argument wasn't just, we don't like this, it was theological.
Yeah, they basically said, you can show us all the nice commercials you want, but biblically literate Christians know better.
They were banking on the idea that dogma is stronger than emotion.
That no matter how nice the veteran in the commercial is the text.
But there is a deeper risk to the strategy HRC used. This is where we have to talk about the recent news. When you build a campaign around respectability politics, when you say Look at us. We are perfect parents. We are safe. We are wholesome. You are making a promise.
You are. You're promising that the marginalized group is just as virtuous, if not more so than the majority.
And if that image cracks, the opposition will use that crack to try and shatter the whole window.
Which brings us to the Walton County case.
Yeah.
To the Zulaks.
Yeah. This is a heavy turn in the story, but it's necessary to understand the current political landscape.
It is. The case involves a gay couple, William and Zachary Zulak, who were affiliated with campaign efforts, specifically regarding adoption rights.
And they were granted custody of 2 young boys.
Yes.
And the details that came out in court they're horrific. We don't need to be graphic, but we have to be clear. These men abused those children.
Systematically. Between 2019 and July 2022, they utilized their position of trust to abuse their adopted sons. It was a catastrophic failure of the system and a heinous crime.
And justice was served. Eventually, they were sentenced to 100 years in prison in late 2024. But because this happened in the context of a highly politicized debate about gay adoption, the crime didn't stay a local tragedy.
It became a national weapon.
Yeah.
This is the volatility of the hearts and minds strategy. Prominent right-wing commentators, figures like Charlie Kirk and Laura Ingraham, seized on this case immediately.
They used the Zulak name as a shorthand, didn't they? They connected the specific crimes of these 2 men to the broader argument against same-sex adoption.
Yes, the argument became, you told us gay parents were safe. You told us they were just like us. Look at this. It's a classic generalization tactic.
They conflated the actions of 2 criminals with the validity of millions of families.
And, Media Matters pushed back on this, pointing out that bad actors exist in every demographic: heterosexual, homosexual, religious, secular.
Of course. Using one case to demonize an entire population is a logical fallacy.
It is, but emotionally, it's effective. And that's the danger. When the HRC spent millions selling the image of the good gay family, they inadvertently raised the stakes.
If you live by the anecdote, you can die by the anecdote.
Exactly. The HRC used positive stories to build trust. Their opponents used this one negative story to try and destroy it.
It really highlights that soft power is a constant battle. It's not a one-time purchase. You don't just buy the ads in 2014 and declare victory. The narrative is constantly being rewritten by events on the ground.
And that leads us to the synthesis of this whole deep dive. The All God's Children campaign was a massive, expensive experiment in navigating that intersection of religion and rights.
It showed that you can move the needle, or at least grease the wheels, with the right messaging. Using Christian language, using local voices. I mean, that was smart.
It was. It allowed people to evolve without feeling like they were surrendering their identity.
But the Zulak aftermath and the persistent backlash show that the cultural truce is fragile. The 26% rise in support is real. That's the friends and family effect at work. But the political weaponization of identity is still very much alive.
Very much so.
So here's the thought I want to leave everyone with. We look at that $8.5 million price tag, we look at the glossy commercials, and we tend to think that change comes from these big top-down initiatives.
We want to believe there's a master plan that works.
But the data suggests something more humble. In a region where personal relationships drive everything, where who your daddy is and where you go to church matters more than the law, was the ad campaign the hero of the story? Or was the real engine of change simply the bravery of ordinary people living their lives openly in a hostile environment?
Did the commercial change the mind, or did the cousin who came out of Thanksgiving dinner do the heavy lifting?
I have a feeling the $8.5 million helped, but the cousin did the work.
I think you're right.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for unpacking this with us. We'll see you next time.